Hey guys, my name's Techni, and welcome back to the 1v1. This week, we're talking to Mauisnake, a former NAECL player and coach, but more notably, a renowned broadcast talent and Counter-Strike analyst. We had a few software issues while going through this conversation, so I'll be jumping in right in the middle of our discussion. Of course, if you want to watch the full thing, you can check it out on Maui's Twitch. Of course, his socials and everything for Voxel will be in the description below. But with that, introduce Mauisnake. Yeah, I was actually the next question I have for you is about kind of the next NA talents that are coming through with a lot of these teams. It's kind of hard to make like a real assessment sometimes just because um I feel, at least not on the HLTV pages, there's not a lot of international competition going on between this kind of challenger level NA teams, you know, your Elevates, your M80s, your wild cards, right? And
Mhm.
if you look at the NA space, excluding Liquid, complexity is head and shoulders above everyone else in like a pretty disgusting way. So I was thinking about how do we kind of rebuild up the next talents, right? And in your eyes, maybe you could talk about teams in general or specific players. Who are the next big players in the NA space?
You could look at anybody on M80. I would give them an instant shout out. Their pro league performance was really it definitely over delivered. Because we'd seen that M80 was kind of the second dogs in they were kind of they were kind of like the second team for me in the space behind complexity, because they had even beaten Liquid in some online qualifier stuff. And then when they took down G2 in a BO3 on LAN, and they kind of handled some of the other teams they were supposed to, it's like, okay, Malbs, Rec, Swisher, they could be next up. They already might be up. Like they're kind of there right now, already punching into the top 25 in the world. Beyond that, there's some names that have floated around. I've kind of watched a little bit here and there of people like Jaba on Wildcard. Trying to think who are some other people. The people that are on Elevate, for example, even though they kind of have a kind of a rocky history, I feel like there is actually some talent there, some skill. I'm trying to think of who else. Some of the guys on Nouns were good for a while, but it feels like Nouns have been shifting some players around. Like they gave Glacia a try, but now they're bringing back Rush in. Uh, NRG themselves should be pretty good, but I can't really say beyond. Like I think the team that is going to go from getting a lot of hate to then people are going to start to be forced to root for them a little bit will probably be Elevate. I just think that I don't think they're bad actually when I've seen any bits of them, but they have kind of shot themselves in the foot in terms of PR.
Yeah, they have quite the reputation in the NA tier two space, ECL space. I definitely say that. So I have two last questions for you. And this first one's gonna be pretty brief. Thoughts on the simple course? I watched like I think I got like 2 minutes into like the first thing on Anubis. It was,
Mhm.
and it was very I would say like low level. Like I feel like if I was coaching like a my open team, like I would tell them the same thing. What are your kind of thoughts on how Simple is approaching this?
Yeah, I watched like nearly 10 minutes of it and I kind of had the same feeling. Just terribly structured for one. Just the whole video was supposed to be about what you do on eco rounds and force buys, and then he started talking about setups on Anubis to default in, and I was like, you literally don't know what this is about. Like you literally don't know what you're talking. Like you don't know why you're talking about what you're talking about. Like everything he says is true and accurate. Like, hey, this is how you would default. This is what a reaction would look like. But it's like this has nothing to do with eco round. Like this has nothing to do with force buy rounds. Like maybe you could run one of these on a force buy, but it's like you would probably the problem with like Counter-Strike coaching in general is that having watched a lot of content, made some for myself, I always feel like the stuff that ends up being more meaningful is once you start getting into one-on-one coaching and or like team for team coaching. Like if you're starting to do like broad stuff, like unfortunately, actually this is one of the best things about Counter-Strike is that there's no one size fits all for play styles or setups or anything. Like anything. Like you could throw the meta out the window if you have certain personnel. Like if you have 3 aggressive players on your team, you're going to play a different style than a team that has 4 passive players and then 1 aggro guy. Like and you're going to run different defaults, and those individuals because they have different skill sets, would probably do better for certain reasons. Like when I was doing demo reviews for people when I was kind of like a few years ago, I would give them a whole summary and I would say like, here are ways that here are things and concepts you should work on. But if I'm like the simple course itself it was just scatterbrained. No one held his hand through organizing that, and that was probably the biggest problem with it. So I, frankly, it just I don't know where it's gonna go. The production value on recording him in his chair is really high, but
Yeah, I thought
they
that was
didn't even
cool.
get a real editor. They didn't even get like the editing was just zooming in, zooming out of what he's doing on the screen. It wasn't even like a good demonstration of anything he was trying to show. Like when he was like, "Oh, you could throw a flash like this." They didn't even show the flash, you know? He just was like, "Oh, you could throw a flash like this." And he just kind of like moved his mouse in that direction. It was like, okay.
Yeah, I remember. I believe it was Rushley who used to do this, like the pro tips, and it would do like he
Yeah.
would zoom out on the map, fly around, it would follow the smokes and show you things. That's what I kind of expected, and that's honestly what you might expect as well, considering how much time they put into like the computer setup and the whole studio they built out. But it's
Mhm.
just they did screen capture. Yeah, I don't know. Like, Hey Future Pros would be so much better. Like, that'd be, in my opinion, a lot better as well. And so I'll be looking into that JAME course. I'll look into that instead.
Yeah.
Um, so my last question, actually, I'll break it up into two to make it a little bit easier. What is a mistake that you see a lot of low-level broadcast talent making generally? Like, what do you think? Yeah, like what are some mistakes that maybe they don't catch on the lower level, even like the tier through two or folks just beneath you? What would you say?
Just no targeted brand image. I feel like um just kind of trying to play all sides. I feel like it's better to be sharper and have a personality than it is to just try to always do the most right thing. Like I feel like people I don't know, like it's kind of hard to like you I think the main okay, this is just like all broadcasts in general and even just storytelling is that people need caricatures of who you are in order to internalize and just like digest what it is that you're bringing to the table. Because I think one thing that in the beginning I was not I didn't really lean into an angle per se, and I was kind of just kind of like I guess this isn't always true. I guess like some people you just like like, not having an opinion that's strong is kind of off-putting for me. I feel like space is a little weird where you get a lot of you do get a lot of chances, but eventually you have to make your mark one way or another, or you just kinda get just washed out. And if you just kinda say things that are sort of run-of-the-mill top if you're repeating what Reddit is saying in the top voted comment of every thread and just agreeing with that, and that's what your broadcast persona is, you're just not gonna make it out of tier 2. Like, you're just never gonna like, if you're not bringing any new ideas to the table, like, I would just kinda give it's easiest to just give myself as an example here, like, you know, when I have a hot take like, one of my first and earlier hot takes was, like, the big roster with Favin, I think they could be top 5, and Richard just harped on that. People were clowning me for a while on that, but it kinda became part of my brand identity, like, overrating Big Clan, and people that still stuck with me in a way that I don't mind. Like, I don't mind that I will overrate Big Clan, and I rated VP really highly, really early also. I've rated like I just think like, you know, if you're kind of just like someone that is repeating I'll say okay, here's the way to essentialize this whole idea. Um a it was like a Stanford professor gave this lecture not too long ago about job security and safety and what he would do as someone that was kind of like on the cutting edge to make sure that his kids had jobs leading into 2050 as he's trying to just predict trends moving forward. And he said that the best thing right now for people to get into is entertainment because entertainment is one of the few jobs that AI cannot really do because it can't be subjective with its opinions as strongly as people can. People can just have their biases and then they can just settle and they can ride those biases and say make a claim about those biases. But if you're getting into like comp sci, STEM, anything like that, you're doing objective activities that eventually like AI can replace a lot of people doing these jobs. Like a lot of people don't want to hear this, but like there's a chance that like programming, like for a lot of people, their entire skill set will become obsolete in not that long, because just like why would you be better at programming than a computer that is built to program? So the so what I'm saying that is that if you're bringing that to entertainment, be subjective, have an angle, have a bias. Like so many people in this space, when they get into it, it says like, oh, like I'm being biased here, but this, it's like lean into that, lean into being biased. Uh, the that's that's what I would say for like tier 2, tier 3 broadcast talent. Don't try to play every side. Try to actually have a little bit of flair. Like the bias is what makes you human, and it's what makes people like, love, and hate your personality.
Well, I couldn't say it better myself. That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, Maui. I was gonna ask you another question following it, but you already answered it. It was just gonna be kind of what word of advice would you give for that
Mhm.
similar space. So absolutely killed it, Maui. Thank you so much for joining me. It means so much to be able to talk to someone with as much experience as you and as much pedigree. Would it be okay if again, I wasn't expecting to be live. Would it be okay if I shouted out some of my details?
Yeah, sure thing.
Awesome. So I'll be doing a lot more interviews like this. Again, around the corner, I have Kojomo, who's going to be talking about some of his ECL run and his kind of prognosis on the NA scene. Additionally, we'll be talking to Penguin, and we got whole who does like video essays on mapping, and we're going to talk about kind of the current state of the map pool. So we got a whole lot of stuff planned. Additionally, Voxel is about, we're running tournaments and we're trying to make it unique. We want to have fun events that aren't just about competition, but also content creation and about building up brands of players and giving an opportunity not just for the players themselves, but for broadcast and for anyone really to make their space in esports. So if you're interested in any of those projects, if you're interested in what we got going on, we have a tournament coming up at the end of August for $5,000. It is a 16-team tournament. And we already have a couple of pretty nice teams coming in. I'm not going to mention any of them just yet, but we have a couple of teams that are ready to go and attend. So if you're interested in any of the stuff that we're doing, interested in stuff that I'm doing, that is at TechniTV on Twitter, and then at Voxel_CS2 on Twitter as well. We also have Discord and whatnot, but you can find the details on those socials. Again, Maui, thank you so much for having me. We went a little bit over that 10-minute timer that we talked about just a little bit earlier. So thank you for being so courteous and giving us so much information.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for letting me stream it. Honestly, that
That's more
really
to my
fun too.
benefit. I'm All right, Maui, I'll let you go. You have a good one.
All right, thanks. Yeah, you too. Peace.
Peace.